All right, guys. So I'm just here in the truck. Decided I would. Well, I need to run some errands, and thought I would take the truck, the van, to run the errands. It's been a couple of weeks since it's really been driven anywhere. I haven't worked since basically November. December was incredibly quiet, and I thought it was important to share that. It's been very important to me that as I start this vlogging process to really give a fairly accurate portrayal of what it's like to be a freelance cinematographer. I think it's so easy just to share all the good stuff that happens and all the successes, but I think to also share those times where it's a little harder or it's a little quiet or you're having challenges about a project, I think is important, and you don't see that stuff maybe so often. So January right now is fairly slow, work-wise, which it can be for this time of year. As you get into a new year in January, you're never really sure exactly when things are going to get going. I've certainly had busy Januaries in the past. I've had slow Januaries. Generally, on the whole, I would say January, February can be quiet. If I were a betting man, I would trend for it to be quiet. But this January is definitely sort of quiet at the moment. And what makes the feeling that much more worse and sort of, gives me a bit of anxiety is that December I didn't work at all. And November was generally quite quiet as well. So I really haven't had a solid run of work since like October. So that's, I don't know really what that is. I've certainly, I've been, for a bit of background, I've been a freelance cinematographer for over 10 years now. I'm probably into my 13th or 14th year. It's hard to sort of pinpoint exactly when I sort of went full-time as a freelance cinematographer, but I've been doing it for, about 12 to 14 years now. And I've always been fine. Things have always kind of worked themselves out. I've always been able to make a living, and there's no real indicator that this should really be any different. Having it be this, I haven't really had this a consistent or consecutive sort of multiple weeks of slowness, probably ever. Which again, I don't want to jump to conclusions. I don't want to be negative about it or pessimistic about it, but certainly it's a new kind of experience. Really the only other time that I've gone this long without working at all has been the pandemic, which really was nobody's fault. For those who are curious, this is the difference between the Falconeyes 24 TDX and the Amaran F22C. So obviously both 2x2, so the exact same size. The differences are that the Amaran F22C has these grommets around, which make it a little bit easier to rig, or give you another option to rig it that way with the grommets, versus the Falconeyes has nothing surrounding its edges. One thing that is maybe beneficial to the Falconeyes is it can be sort of rolled up. So it is a little more malleable if you have to get it, around something that is curved. You can kind of manipulate it and tape it or Velcro it into place. Where with the F22C, they don't recommend rolling it at all. It has a fold here in the center, and for storage, you fold it in half like so. So you really, you got a little bit of, maybe a little bit of flex, but you really can't do this to it the way that you can with the Falconeyes. So, there is some perks to having this, but, in my experience of owning the lamp, the amount of times that has occurred where I need to do that level of manipulation has sort of been very far and few between. So I don't think I'm going to keep it. I think I'm still gonna put it on the used market to sell it. So one of the benefits of RGB WW lighting or any other multi-chip colored light is that you've got plus minus green function. But if you don't, one tip is that if you add little Velcro, that's what I kind of did here. I added little, do this with one hand. Basically, I added these little Velcro dots to the corners and then added like soft side and then added hard side Velcro dots on the gel. And so I can sort of easily tack on the gel to the front of the diffusion without having to deal with tape or, clothes pegs or whatever other ways to get it attached. So I was able to find a buyer for my Falconeyes 2x2. Before getting rid of it, I wanted to do a side-by-side with the new Amaran F22C. So I have it here set up as a side-by-side to do some output tests just to see how it compares. So I decided to put the Falconeyes, which is a bicolor light, in just daylight, 100%. At that setting, I got a reading of about F8 at 5 feet. I have a tripod as a marker just set up here. Then I put the F22 in the same setup, 5600, 100%. Take another reading. I got F11, still at 5 feet. This is with the grid cloth diffusion on front. Similar with the Falconeyes, also with the grid cloth front. I really mainly wanted to get the F22 though to compare against these DMG SL1s, which is a 1 meter by like 8-inch panel, sort of similar to the Kino Freestyle stuff. I've often been using these lights as either bounce into an 8x ultra bounce for tabletop stuff or through an 8x piece of diffusion like full grid, and they've really been great. A lot of versatility, full color system. RGGBAW is the chipset, but they are a little bit bulkier and heavier than say a flex light. So I wanted to see if there's any way that I could reduce some of the weight in my van and as a kit. If I'm working in smaller teams or setting up stuff even by myself, sometimes having a lighter weight system is a little bit easier for me. And sure enough, the F22 is as bright as these DMGs. Here I have the DMG set up with a snap bag, no front, and I was comparing that to the F22 with its diffusion, the full grid diffusion, and got the same reading of F11 at 5 feet. If you actually pull the diffusion off the F22 and just go bare chip, it ends up being about half a stop brighter, which if you're going to push through diffusion, additional diffusion, or even bounce it, is a great option if you need a little bit more out of it. So selling used equipment is often a necessary activity as an owner-operator, as work has been a little slow getting going at the start of 2023. I've been taking the last couple of days to comb through some old gear to try to list it and get it sold, try to make some cash to maybe put into some new stuff. Here we have 3 K5600 HMI Jokers, a 400 and 2 200s. That I bought over the last couple of years. Largely, it's been sitting though in my lockup, unused for quite a while, as LED has just become more prevalent and more convenient. So I've got a 400 and 2 200s here. The 400 and the 200 I actually bought used myself when really HMI was the ticket in terms of a bright daylight source. This is before LED was really a thing, and so HMI was the only way you could get sort of a bright daylight source, and I was always looking on the used market myself to find HMIs because buying them brand new was very expensive. It still really is, especially as a younger owner-operator with not a lot of cash. So I scooped up this 400 and this 200 as soon as I saw them on the used market, and certainly got a lot of use out of them, but like I said, they've largely been sitting the last couple years. Probably should have tried to offload it sooner, but here we are. I'm always a little bit tardy with that kind of stuff, and always sort of, saving stuff for maybe a rainy day. I'm learning to try to not hold on to stuff longer than I need to, and to try to move stuff sooner than later. You always get a better return that way. So anyways, just taking a couple photos, gonna have it listed for local Toronto sale, and we'll see, hopefully someone will want to scoop these up.